Never told. 7 insane rules at a retirement home for monsters you won't believe. 3. The sun dipped low, casting eerie shadows over Grimstone Acres, an unassuming retirement home nestled at the edge of town. But don't be fooled. This wasn't just any ordinary place for old folks to rest their weary bones. No, it was a sanctuary for monsters. The kind of creatures nightmares are made of. Werewolves, mummies, and even a few vampires, each bearing the weight of their dark past. And within those walls, 7 shocking rules governed their daily lives. Rules that would send shivers down anyone's spine. First and foremost, the residents were strictly forbidden from using the kitchen after dusk. To the untrained eye, it looked harmless enough, but the truth lay in the prowling darkness. Rumor had it that the last soul who dared to cook at night vanished without a trace. The kitchen door creaked ominously as the sun set, each sound echoing like a warning in the still night air. A tightness gripped the throats of anyone who dared to venture close. Then there was Rule 2. No one could speak of their previous lives. The hushed whispers among the residents held secrets wrapped in terror. As they gathered for bingo on Tuesday nights, the air thick with anticipation, eyes darted at the windows every time a shadow flickered outside. What if someone remembered who they were? A monster with a history. Was that the reason the Headless Horseman never joined the game? The mere thought of it coiled around their hearts, tightening like a noose. As the days dragged, the residents began questioning each other, exchanging nervous glances. They were all trapped together, a collection of eerie beings bound by rules stitched from fear. When would they uncover the truth? And what would happen to those who dared to defy these unbreakable laws? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But nothing could prepare them for Rule 3. A new arrival was expected, someone who had the power to turn their world upside down. Speculation ran rampant. Who could it be? A mummy with fresh bandages? Or a ghost who could still throw a mean party? Lumps formed in throats, hearts raced, and hands trembled with anticipatory dread. All eyes turned to the door, waiting for the telltale creak that would send them spiraling into chaos. The night stretched on, every tick of the clock a countdown to the unknown. With shadows creeping closer and the air thick with tension, one thought haunted their minds. What if they were next? The clock struck midnight. A sharp chime sliced through the thick silence of Grimstone Acres. Residents stilled, some clutching their bingo cards as if the game held the secrets to their survival. A series of raspy whispers filtered through the room, igniting paranoia. What if the new arrival was worse than any of them imagined? Then came a knock, a dull, hollow sound resonating through the cramped hallway. The heavy door seemed to tremble as it swung open, creaking under the weight of a presence they couldn't yet see. Murmurs erupted, rising like a tide. Is it him? What does it want? Stepping into the flickering light of the main lounge, a figure cloaked in shadows emerged. A long robe flowed like a shroud around them, enveloping the space in a chilling air. As the residents craned their necks, an aura of dread blanketed the room. Was it a ghost? A sorcerer? The palpable tension buzzed like static in the air. The figure lowered their hood, revealing their face, a wrinkled visage that seemed to shift like smoke. I've come for a reunion, they rasped, voice dripping with ancient power. The unease was suffocating. Was this an ally or a harbinger of doom? A fit of shivers cascaded over the other residents, and the room echoed with nervous gasps. Virus, an aging vampire with an insatiable curiosity, stepped closer. Reunion? With whom? His eyes flickered, letting the darkness within them dance. Your true selves, the figure replied. Awakening the past is what you fear most. As their words hovered in the air, cold fingers of anxiety reached around each heart. What truths were buried beneath layers of memory? The air tightened, filled with unspoken fears. No one dared to break Rule 2. Yet, here was a being that threatened to shatter not just the rules, but their very identities. How do we know you're not just here to delude us? A blustery werewolf challenged, fangs glimmering as he stepped forward, wrestling with his instincts. We don't need a past we can't escape. But you've already been ensnared, the newcomer hissed, voice smooth and enticing. Every time you seal your past, you trap yourselves in stories no one knows. But what if truth gives you power? As the tension swelled, the laughter echoed faintly from the back of the lounge. The headless horseman, unseen yet ever-present, stood by the flickering window, sneering at the terror unfolding before the group. You think it can change anything? He chuckled darkly. We are all lost, and we want to stay that way. The atmosphere crackled, bodies tensed, fences between old lives threatened to crumble. What power did this newcomer wield? What truths were hidden from them? Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a loud crash echoed through the hall. The old statue of a gargoyle toppled from its pedestal, shattering on the floor in a cascade of stone and dust. A gasp ripped through the room. Look out! A voice screamed. The darkness seemed to pulse and surge, threatening to envelop them all. What had they unleashed? As panic reigned, everyone scrambled to escape their fates intertwined by the arrival, and the dreadful chaos that followed. In the midst of it all, the figure chuckled softly, a sound that sent shivers down spines. The room trembled not just from fear, but from awakening truths clawing their way to the surface. What terrifying secrets would be spilled? What choices would the residents face? And would they remain together, or would the darkness tear them apart? As the shadows continued to chase them, one thought loomed larger: what if facing their past was the only path to salvation? The floor trembled beneath their feet, the air thick with panic. Shouts merged in the chaos, echoing in the corners as the lights stuttered like faulty memories. Some residents dove for cover behind frayed armchairs, while others pressed against the walls, wide-eyed and breathless. Stay together, Virus shouted, trying to rally them. His voice, usually smooth and comforting, cracked under pressure. The jingling of his ancient cape seemed to mix with the steady thud of his heart. Together? The werewolf rumbled, his tail twitching nervously. Did you not hear what it said? It's here to dredge up our pasts. We're safer apart. He glanced anxiously around, his instincts screaming at him to break free. The figure in the shadows raised a skeletal hand, silencing the crowd with an eerie calm. You can scatter like roaches, it intoned, but each of you carries a darkness that this place cannot forget. Do you really want to run from yourselves? With those words, a surge of dread swept over them. Virus felt the weight of hidden truths pressing down, like a heavy fog against his spirit. What secrets had they buried behind those walls? Was the creature before them a prophet or a predator? Across the room, the headless horseman chuckled, his voice a twisted echo. You can't escape who you are. Isn't it amusing to think you can hide? His spectral laughter cut through the air, icy and mocking. Amidst the awestruck residents, a soft voice trembled from the back. It was Marjorie, an elderly witch with fading bones but a sharp mind. What if we don't want to remember? She whispered, her voice barely rising above the din. What good does it do us? Denial has never served you, Marjorie, the figure replied, piercing her with its gaze. The past holds keys to your freedom. But freedom comes at a price. A bone-chilling silence fell over the room, every heart racing in unison. It was a pause heavy with implications, a moment so tainted with possibilities that it felt almost tangible. As if sensing their hesitancy, the figure stepped forward, the shadows billowing like smoke, revealing a darkened void in its chest. I possess the memories, the damnable routes to your former lives. Retrieve them from the depths, and you can regain what you lost: strength, loyalty, and perhaps even hope. And then it struck Virus. A spark of realization. Was the figure offering salvation or entrapment? In Grimstone Acres, where they kept the darkness at bay with rules, had they unwittingly sealed their fate? All we've done is needed protection from our own demons, Virus said huskily, clutching his cape tightly around him, his eyes narrowing on the figure. But the question remains: what happens when those demons break free? The figure smiled, revealing teeth sharp enough to rattle even the strongest of souls. That, dear residents, is entirely up to you. Before anyone could react, the lights exploded into bright shards of glass and darkness engulfed the room. Screams filled the air, every voice distinct yet blended into one terrifying harmony. In that pitch-black void, time stood still, and one thought lingered: how could they escape a reality they had each unwittingly welcomed? As darkness fought to claim them, a single thought ushered through the fear: if the choice was to face their pasts or succumb to the void, which life-altering truths were they willing to awaken? In the stillness that followed, a new scream broke the silence, a guttural roar that turned every eye to the entrance. A shape lurked there, but what emerged from the shadows could shatter everything they thought they knew. Beneath the rustling chaos and the pounding heartbeats, something far darker awaited. What monster had they inadvertently invited in? Would they confront it, or retreat further into the depths of their fears? The roar echoed through the hall like a thunderclap, rattling the bones of the very building. Residents flinched, eyes wide, bracing for the unknown. Margaret clutched the arm of a nearby Gorgon, her old heart racing, while Virus stood rooted, a primal instinct warred with his rational mind. Out of the encroaching shadows, a gargantuan figure emerged. Muscles rippled beneath its bristled fur, eyes glowing amber in the dim light. Fangs glistened as it bared its mouth in a menacing snarl. This was no ordinary monster, it was the guardian of secrets, lore whispered in trepidation around midnight campfires. Its mere presence sent a shiver through the room. "What have you brought upon us?" The werewolf spat, voice trembling but fierce. The guardian's nostrils flared, and a sinister grin spread across its face. "Comforting, isn't it? To see the fear on your faces," it growled, every syllable laced with contempt. "I am here to show you what you've long hidden. Each of you has secrets that seethe like a boiling spring, waiting for the moment to erupt." Virus took a step back, feeling the weight of his earlier assertion hang in the air. Had they summoned this horror with their own doubts? Yes, yes. The horseman laughed, his spectral presence twisting with excitement. "This is the moment you've avoided. Confront your pasts, dear friends. Isn't it exhilarating?" Marjorie clasped her hands over her heart, eyes darting from the guardian to Virus. "We can't let it trap us. If it feeds off our fears, we're already lost." But even as she spoke, the air shifted. Shadows slithered along the floor, clawing at their legs like fingers pulling them into a dark abyss. The candlestick on the mantel flickered ominously, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. "Run!" Virus shouted, instinct overriding fear. People moved, but chaos soon erupted. Some bolted for the door, while others stumbled, frozen by apprehension. The howls and roars made calculating paths impossible as bodies collided. The guardian laughed, a gravelly, bone-chilling sound. "You cannot escape your truth. You think your pasts are behind you? They're clawing to re-emerge, to take form." And then, from the corner, a person screamed. Virus swung around, his heart pounding against his ribcage. He gasped as a double of himself materialized, a ghastly reflection of his younger self, tainted with all his regrets. The choices he made, the paths he never took. "Look at what you've buried," the doppelganger rasped, with a voice hauntingly familiar. "You fled, but I remained." Cursing and panting, Virus shook his head. He didn't want to remember, didn't want to face this mockery. But as his memories surged, so did a perverse clarity. There had been joys and triumphs. He had also buried deep whispers of hope entangled with shadows of despair. "Face it," the guardian thundered, and the room vibrated with its command. "Or drown in a darkness of your own making." All around him, the residents confronted their fears with terror and anger. The werewolf snared in memory, the Gorgon trembling as its past flashed before its eyes. One by one, they had to look inward, or risk losing themselves to the chaos. Virus raised his voice, fighting against both his beast and the storm within. "Together, we can face this." But the guardian sensed their faltering will. Togetherness. A fleeting dream until the dam bursts. Choose wisely, or witness the ruin you had long forgotten. Dark tendrils of fear tightened around each of them, winding through their minds and hearts like poison. Would they find the courage to confront their truths, or would they continue running, allowing their nightmares to consume them? Ahead, more shadows loomed. Each pulse in the dark was a reminder that the battle was far from over. What else was hiding in the darkness, waiting to shatter their reality? And before Virus could grasp the depth of terror about to conquer them, a high-pitched scream erupted from the shadows. one that sent a wave of icy dread through the crowd. What new horror had they unleashed now? The screams cut through the noise, a knife slicing the thick air. Virus's heart raced faster than his feet. He spun, searching the shadows, every instinct screaming for him to move, to protect. A figure stumbled from the darkness, face contorted in a mix of horror and disbelief. It was Margaret, the elderly resident, eyes wide with terror that transformed into desperation. But as she looked back into the abyss, something new emerged, a giant, twisted monster, with gnarled fingers and glowing green eyes. "I can't let it in," Margaret shrieked, backing away as though the dark itself had come alive. "It knows my fears." Virus felt a knot tighten in his stomach, an oppressive weight pushing down on him. They were running out of time, and the darkness was licking at their heels. The Guardian's laughter echoed, twisting through the air like a serpent, knowing every secret. "Margaret!" Virus shouted, rushing forward. "Don't let it take you. Remember who you are?" But it was too late. Shadows gathered around Margaret, wrapping her like a shroud. With every sob, the shadows grew thicker, swirling ominously. I can't face it," she cried, her voice breaking as she stared into the void she feared most. "Stop!" Virus yelled, desperation lacing his voice. He squeezed through the chaos, trying to reach her, but the dark seemed to pull him back, as if warning him that he was too close to the edge. "It's too late for her," the Guardian mocked, eyes glimmering with menace. "You all think you can defy me? Your weaknesses are as clear as glass. Surrender to your truths, or drown in despair." As Virus reached for Margaret, a power surged within him, a flicker of resolve igniting in the dark. He turned to the others, gathering their fearful glances, pleading, "We have to confront this together. All of us. There is strength in our truths." But the horseman put a spectral hand on Virus's shoulder, his voice faint yet urgent. "You're asking for unity in the face of our worst memories. It's a gamble, one that could shatter everything we've built." "Maybe," Virus replied, just above a whisper. "But isn't it better than letting them consume us?" But the Guardian interrupted their exchange, his voice booming. "Fools! Secrets lie deep, fed by the very essence of fear. Face them, and you may find freedom, but dodge them, and despair shall become your only companion." As if summoned by his words, the shadows at Margaret's feet began to unravel, revealing a string of memories, dreams she'd buried, long-forgotten joys. Her spirit flickered, hovering on the brink of despair. I lost my daughter," she whispered through trembling lips. "I can't bear the pain of it all. What if I'm not worthy? What if—" Virus took a deep breath, connecting with her eyes. "You are worthy, Margaret, not only of love, but of every moment that lived within you. Let those memories surface. They do not define you, but they can empower you." Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, as if stung. The others began to shout out their truths, fueled by a mix of fear and determination. An explosion of memories slashed through the air, a werewolf's first lost love, a Gorgon's neglected childhood, a horseman's moments of joy. The light gathered, swirling into a vortex of power that pushed against the darkness. As they faced their pasts, the monster around Margaret began to dissipate, revealing a glimmer of hope. But among the cries, a new shadow stirred, different from before. Something darker, more sinister lurked in the corners, waiting patiently. Virus felt the ground tremble beneath them, a warning that their battle was only beginning. "What is happening?" Margaret gasped as the new shadow loomed larger, its smirk sharp and biting. "Something worse," murmured Virus, a creeping chill snaking up his spine. Something we hadn't anticipated. The unexpected dread tugged at his insides, and, just as they thought they'd found a moment of clarity, it brushed against the truth that had remained untold, that the battle against their secrets was merely a prelude to something far more catastrophic. What new horror was looming in the shadows? A wave of uncertainty washed over the crowd as they braced themselves for the reckoning ahead. The Guardian's cackle echoed again, teasingly an ominous refrain of things to come. The ground shook with a violent tremor as the new shadow expanded, swallowing light and hope in its grasp. Virus felt his breath quicken, his mind racing as he tried to process what lay ahead. This wasn't just about confronting their fears anymore. It was a fight against something that had been lurking in the dark, waiting for its moment to strike. Margaret stumbled back further, her eyes darting around in search of escape, but there was nowhere to run. The grotesque creature materialized like fog, a swirling mass of nightmares with tendrils reaching out, promising to drag her deeper into despair. It whispered her name, soft yet insidious, every syllable laced with venom and memories she wished to forget. "Margaret!" Virus yelled, panic fueling his voice. "You have to fight it. Remember, the darkness doesn't own you." But she didn't hear him. The grasp of the new shadow tightened around her, its tendrils curling with a menacing deliberation. Among the chaos, Virus noticed the others too, paralyzed by their own demons as their truths collided with bitter memories. The werewolf-esque growls rose in pitch, struggling to hold back the barrage of forgotten loves. The Gorgon's eyes shimmered with tears, her long-suppressed childhood flashing like a broken film reel. They were unraveling, each one pulled apart by the very fears that gave the Guardian his power. "Gather your strength," Virus shouted at them, heart pounding as if it could distract him from the horror surrounding them. "We need to unify. Only together can we face it." Just then, from the corner of his vision, he caught a glimpse of something even darker weaving its way through the chaos. The shadow hadn't come alone. Another entity lurked behind it. This one was jagged, with teeth sharp enough to shred through resolve. The air grew heavier, suffocating clarity. "Can't you see?" The Guardian laughed, an echo of malice. "They want to prevail. The truth is like glass shattering beneath the weight of your fears." "Shut up," Virus shouted, grounding himself as if he could physically push back against this darkness. He felt the pulse of power missed earlier, the light they had called forth fading as the shadows clamored for dominance. It became apparent. They had to do more than just confront their truths. They had to join forces and invoke a new light, something brighter than any fear the Guardian wielded. "Close your eyes," he yelled suddenly, feeling the tension sizzling in the air. "Dig deep and remember what you love. Find one truth that binds you to another." With his eyes shut tight, Virus began to envision the faces of his friends, their laughter, their resilience, those moments that transcended fear. Slowly, he sensed the energy shifting around him. The other monsters hesitated, their inner conflicts stirring like a whirlwind. He listened intently, and one by one, whispers of truth began to fill the void around them. "I loved her once," the werewolf cried out, voice filled with longing. "I won't let your tricks take that away. I was strong once," the Gorgon shouted. "I will not let you bind me with regret." As the choir of voices rose, the heavy blanket of darkness flickered. Virus opened his eyes, tasting the raw energy surging forward, lifting them higher. He could see Margaret, her face illuminated by courage as she summoned her daughter's laughter back from the shadows. She wasn't alone. They were all here, but the other shadow lurked closer, its jagged edges threatening to snatch away their light. Virus could feel its hunger. It was feeding on their fear, ready to strike when they least expected it. "What are you?" Before he could finish, the jagged shadow lunged, scattering light like dust in the wind. Panic surged through his veins, igniting urgency within him. "Fight! We can't let it break us," he shouted, but the oppressive weight of doubt pulled at him, threatening to hinder his resolve. As the shadows lunged, Virus's heart thundered. He had only one question echoing in his mind. Were their memories strong enough to withstand the storm? In that heartbeat of uncertainty, it hit him like a brick. What if the shadows weren't just frightening remnants of their pasts, but also harbingers of something they hadn't fully understood yet? He had to warn them, all of them. What if everything we fear is only a reflection of what lies ahead? The ground trembled again, but the answers eluded him as the battle loomed closer. Would they decipher the truth before it was too late? There was no time to waste. They had to face the monstrous truth together or lose everything. With the shadows closing in, Virus braced himself for a reckoning unlike anything they had encountered before. Would they emerge alive from the churning chaos, or would they be swallowed whole by the relentless darkness? The next moments would eclipse everything they thought they knew. The jagged shadow lunged forth, a piercing scream echoing in the air, merging with the laughter of lost memories that filled the void. Virus barely had time to react, his instincts firing like a well-worn engine. "Get ready," he shouted, his voice rising against the chaos. "We need to push back." But just as the others seemed to grasp his urgency, the creature's teeth snapped in a snarl, and its maw widened, gaping like the mouth of hell itself. Virus could feel the cold breath of fear washing over him as the monster hovered closer, eager to taste their despair. Margaret's eyes forced open with a desperate flicker of resolve. "We can't let it take us," she yelled, grounding herself, digging into that tether of love she had just recalled. Strength in our truths. One by one, the shadows crept forward, dark tendrils searching for the cracks in their resolve. The Gorgon focused on the warmth of summer days shared with her family, while the werewolf channeled visions of moonlit runs through the woods. Invocation after invocation, they shouted snippets of hope despite the demons clawing at their thoughts. "Remember, you are more than your fears," Virus urged, heart racing. "The Guardian feeds on despair. We will not give it to him." The room pulsed, vibrated with living energy as each monster tapped into their light. Suddenly, it felt like their individual truths sparked a flame, merging together into a wide, brilliantly blazing wave, illuminating the edges of the encroaching shadows. But there was a sudden jolt. A shock wave of anguish swept through, fracturing the collective courage they gathered. The jagged shadow lashed out, ripping through the vibrant aura and sending torrents of doubt rushing back in. "Fools!" The Guardian cackled, glee echoing through the air. "Do you really think the past can save you? Look at me, I'm all the regrets, all the pain. You can't escape that." Virus fought against the tide of hopelessness, clenching his fists as shadows sought to tug at his memories. "No," he roared, feeling anger blaze inside him like a furnace. "You're just a figment of our past's twisted tales. We will build our future." He shoved the darkness back, feeling it recoil, a tangible reaction that propelled him forward. He could feel his friends rallying, the newfound strength forming into a shield, pushing back against the abyss. They raised their hands together, binding their energies into one concentrated pulse of light, aimed directly at the Guardian. Virus could see the howling shadow flicker with uncertainty for the first time, the darkness wavering under the weight of their unified stance. But the jagged enemy wouldn't go down easily. With an ear-splitting screech, it coiled around Margaret, forcing her to the ground, its claws digging into her shoulders. "Margaret!" Virus screamed, desperation clawing at him. He dashed toward her, but was stopped short by a searing pain in his chest, an invisible weight that screamed betrayal. "Focus," he thought, rallying every ounce of willpower left in him. "Remember what you fought for." Suddenly, behind him, the Gorgon shouted, her voice igniting the air like an electric shock. "Margaret, we're with you. Picture your daughter. She needs you." The werewolf let out a long howl, desperation and longing infusing every note. "Your love is stronger than this monster. Fight." Margaret's breath quickened, and in that moment, her daughter's laughter filled her mind. She dug deep into her heart, grasping the fragile threads of joy and hope, and murmured against the shadows, "I'm not afraid. Not anymore." With a surge of collective power, she pulled away from the jagged shadow, and as she stood, the energy rippling from their bodies ignited. It was a wave of resilience that swept across the room, pushing back everything that threatened to consume them. But the jagged shadow was not finished. It lashed out one more time, aiming for Virus, its fangs gleaming like shards of broken glass. In his chest, dread blossomed, stark and cold. Could he hold this newfound light against such darkness? "Trust," he shouted, but would they? Trust in each other? As the shadow lunged, he wondered if they truly had what it took to break the chain of despair. And then, just beyond their flickering light, a wretched form shifted in the darkness. Something even bigger was about to rise, something that made the Guardian tremble. "Prepare yourselves," Virus whispered inwardly. "Whatever we face now, it's only just begun." With the weight of a new fear looming, they faced not just their pasts but an impending fate that could shatter them all. What would this new foe demand, and would they be strong enough to rise against it? The answer beckoned on the horizon, dark and undeniable. The darkness thickened around them, and Virus felt the air shift like a living thing. There was a whispering intent, more sinister than any words spoken by the Guardian. It felt as if they stood at the edge of an abyss, one that was about to swallow them whole. "Stay united," he shouted, though doubt curled in his gut. If they didn't act fast, They'd be just another memory consumed by this haunting specter. Margaret staggered, gasping for breath, yet determination shone in her eyes. We need to stand together. The guardian feeds on our divisions. The shadows behind them, writhing with anxiety, seemed to hear her words, twisting and howling, squirming like snakes ready to strike. It wasn't he, just the guardian now. Something larger loomed within the blackness, merging with the nightmare they faced. The room trembled, echoing the fear that bolted through each of them. The Gorgon reached for her companions, steeling herself against what was to come. What if we can't fight this? What if whatever comes next is worse? She whispered, fear coloring her voice. No, the werewolf growled, baring his teeth at the uncertainty. We can't let fear pin us down. We're not alone in this. Remember why we came together. As if responding to his words, the ground shook faintly beneath their feet, and a hulking figure began to pull itself from the depths of the dark. It was a grotesque monstrosity, each limb twisted and malformed, moving with deliberate intent. It bore the scars of countless battles, and the way it loomed sent chills down their spines. Just as they thought it couldn't get worse, the creature's mouth opened, and a cacophony of tortured screams burst forth. You think you can defy your own shadows? It roared, the voice booming and echoing, resonating deep within their minds. All you hold dear is nothing but sand slipping through your fingers. Virus felt the air go cold. We need to strike first, he yelled, pacing forward, refusing to give in to the wave of hopelessness crashing against him. But how could they strike against something so overwhelmingly dark? His heart raced, a deadened thud as clarity broke through the chaos. Think, he urged, realizing they carried more than just shadows within them. There's light in our truths. Let us merge our hopes. He turned to Margaret, her face pale but resolute. Your daughter. Keep her close. She nodded, clenching her fists as her daughter's face flooded her mind, a beacon of love in this endless night. In that moment of connection, she drew strength from the longing she felt, lifting her chin. Together, the Gorgon shouted, raising her hand as she tried to extract her own memories of warmth. Let us pool our strengths. Every joy, every love, forge it into something powerful. The werewolf joined them, howling once more, inviting the spirit of the moonlit nights to gather within them. Let us awaken the light. The darkness seemed to shift, sensing a shift in their collective energy. The twinkling light they all found within their racing hearts began to bloom. They shouted out their truths, one after the other, weaving hope into a tapestry against the vast emptiness. But the hulking monster laughed, a chilling sound that plunged them deeper into despair. You think your memories can save you? I will tear them apart. The shadows swept forward, barbed and snarling, but Virus felt their light hold. With a sudden surge of confidence, he steeled himself. You want to win. Remember the love. Remember your past, but don't let it own you. And in that moment, a crack pulsed through the monster, revealing faint glimmers of brilliance somewhere beneath its grotesque exterior. Virus's heart raced. There was still a way forward. But just then, the darkness thundered, shaking the room until they staggered, and with it came a voice, heavy laden with malice. This is only a taste of your end. One by one, I'll consume every last scrap of hope you cling to. As the last words hung in the air, Virus caught a flicker of movement in the shadows, something still lurking, waiting to strike. There it was again, a glimmer in the darkness that held an unsettling familiarity. Don't lose it, he shouted as the shadows coiled tightly. Focus. What power could emerge from this monstrous nightmare? Could they rise enough to confront the depths of their fears, or would that lurking secret forever remain lost in the void? The creature's laughter echoed in Virus's ears, a taunting reminder of their impending doom. He pressed forward, the light within them flickering like a fading candle. The shadows, sensing weakness, pushed closer, their sharp tendrils snaking toward their throats, ready to snuff out the last breaths of hope. Together, Virus cried again, but was unsure whether it was a rallying cry or a desperate plea. His heart hammered as he sought to find the strength in his companions. They had to remember their truths, those precious little shards that the darkness sought to shatter. Margaret's eyes flared with determination. Hold on to those memories. They're stronger than this darkness. She began to focus, conjuring images of her daughter. With every heartbeat, She pulled at that fragile light like silk threads coming together. The warmth of her love radiated and lifted her spirit, and she could feel the others tapping into that raw energy. The Gorgon stood firm, a steady beacon of resilience. Let us ignite the light. We have to push back. She focused on the comfortable moments shared with loved ones, every laugh and tender touch transforming into a warm glow that fronted the shadows. The werewolf, sensing the energy shift, howled yet again, his voice morphing into a call that resounded with the very essence of the night sky, vast and unyielding. He too anchored himself in the love he felt for his pack, the friends he would die for. With each howl, the shadows convulsed. Suddenly, a surge of clarity hit Virus like a jolt of electricity. When we push back, we're fighting together. We are a tapestry of our experiences. Remember what we are fighting for. The power surged through them, light intertwining with dark, illuminating their intertwined fates. The creature shrieked, a sound that reverberated like shattering glass. Its grotesque form blanched under the light, revealing flashes of something more vulnerable beneath. Panic spread in its grotesque visage, and Virus saw it, then a flicker of something familiar in its eyes. Wait, Virus shouted, feeling a strange connection. It's not just darkness. It's suffering. It knows pain. A sudden crack in the monster's exterior expanded like a web. A glimmering silhouette emerged, a figure of shadow and light dancing behind the creature, trapped in a struggle of its own. The monster wasn't just a manifestation of fear. It was a lost soul, trapped within a prison of its own making. The realization brought a moment of quietness, a lull in the chaos, but it was quickly shattered by the creature's thunderous roar. You think you understand? You will never know the depths of despair I carry. Virus felt a thrill of fear wash over him. No, we can feel it. We are you, and you are us. He could hardly believe he was saying it, but there was truth there. Let us free you. The shadows spiraled tighter, but with every plea for understanding, the fissures in the creature's form widened. What if they could save it? What if exposing their truths could shatter its chains? As wild chaos ensued, he focused on their collective, a shared strength he had never felt before. Let us break these chains. Let us dive into its pain, he shouted, feeling every ounce of uncertainty slip away. No soul deserves to be lost forever. The creature reared back, a flash of vulnerability crossing its face. In that moment, Virus realized that the lurking fear hadn't come just from the shadows, but from the very essence of their own lives, their forgotten dreams, losses that had built walls around their hearts. What now? The Gorgon asked, her voice steady yet trembling with both hope and dread. The figure in the shadows writhed, its eyes rolling back to reveal a glow reminiscent of familiar eyes, someone they all knew in another life. Could they seize this chance to free both themselves and this entity? As they shared stories of their past, every recollection entwining into a mighty force, the shadows buckled and warped, leaving a trembling silence in their wake. But just as enlightenment danced on the horizon, something darker loomed. From the deepest blackness surged a new terror, a beast born from anguish, merging with the darkness to form a new monstrosity. What now? Virus whispered in horror, knowing the answer rested not just within their shared memories, but in their capacity to confront this latest horror. Was this the moment their unity would break? Or could they find the strength to face yet another monster born of their collective fears? Chaos engulfed Grimstone Acres as the new monstrosity writhed before them, a grotesque amalgamation of their fears, regrets, and sorrows. It towered high with jagged teeth and an echoing roar that quaked the very walls, threatening to swallow them whole. This is it, Virus thought, his heart racing, every instinct firing at once. We either stand together or lose everything. Don't you dare give up, he shouted over the din. The memory of their earlier unity struck him like lightning. Margaret stepped forward, her eyes aflame with tenacity. We faced the darkness before, and we can do it again. Together. The Gorgon gritted her teeth, shaking off uncertainty. Remember why we're fighting. For every joy we've ever held close. Her voice rang out, a clarion call to ignite the light flickering within them. The werewolf howled, his voice echoing with their shared struggle. This monster is no different from our pasts. We know them. We can face it. His snarl pulled at the collective courage threatening to break free. With every voice added to the chorus a symphony of truths and vulnerabilities, the monstrous shadow reeled, its form flickering under the pressure of their defiance. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet as they lifted their hands, pooling every ounce of love and hope they had. "Let it in," Virus shouted, directing his voice toward the heavy darkness closing in. "We cannot shrink away. If we embrace it, it loses its power." In a great, swirling mix of light and dark, something miraculous happened. Their memories wove together, binding them like threads into a tapestry of resilience, collapsing the barrier between what lived inside their hearts and what waited to be confronted. They brought forth each joy, each light, each moment they cherished, blending into one radiant force. Margaret exhaled deeply, picturing her daughter with every heartbeat. The Gorgon summoned cherished moments of laughter and friendship. The werewolf called forth the bonds of pack. Virus, standing firm, held the feeling of connection tight, fueling them all. "A light united against the dark," he cried, and at once, the brilliance erupted in waves. The monstrosity shrieked, a raw roar of anguish that reverberated off the walls, but the glimmers of their combined energies pierced the shadows, tearing through the heart of despair. That which had haunted their dreams began to lose shape, shriveling away under the intensity of hope. Still, the dark figure snarled, struggling against the light surrounding it. It was changing, a blur between beast and form, a reflection of all the heartache they had fought to overcome. Virus sensed the shift. "It's not just the monster we're fighting," he urged, his voice rising above the cacophony. "It's the pain that binds us to our memories. We need to show compassion." A brief silence fell upon them, a moment where clarity emerged, revealing that every fear they confronted was simply a fragment of the truth that needed to be revealed. Together, they shouted once more, their voices reverberating in unison. They didn't just confront the monster. They embraced it, the past, the pain, the shadows of who they had been. And they transformed it into a cascade of light that enveloped the grotesque creature. Empowerment sculpted from empathy. The shadows twisted and screamed, their hold weakening as their hope merged with their agony. "Fight!" Margaret cried, pulling more memories from within, letting them drift into the ether. "I will not be ashamed anymore." The beast shuddered, its cries melded with relief and grief as if it was awakening from a long slumber. The cacophony ebbed into a whisper, revealing a flicker of understanding. As the darkness dissipated, Virus took a step forward hesitantly. Everything around him fell still. "You're not just a manifestation of our fears. You were once like us, facing your demons alone. We can help you heal." With those words, the creature's maw closed slowly, the horrific visage softening as it withdrew into a slumped posture. Margaret, tears streaming down her face, reached out a tentative hand. "We've all been lost. We can show you how to find the light." At once, the barrier between fear and acceptance shattered, revealing each hidden truth they held inside. The creature began to vanish, slowly unraveling what it once embodied, transforming it into slivers of radiant memories strewn about like stars returning to a darkened sky. As each tendril of darkness faded, they watched the remnants drift into the air, mingling with the light they had summoned. They weren't alone anymore. The room hummed with new energy, a resolve buoyed by collective strength. Virus glanced at Margaret, the Gorgon, and the werewolf, his friends, his family. "We did it together. The darkness is gone." And just like that, beneath the crumbling remnants of their fears, something different filled the room: understanding, acceptance, and hope. Grimstone Acres was no longer just a retirement home for monsters haunted by their pasts. They stood united, their shadows intertwined with light, ready to embrace the next chapter of their lives. As they emerged from the darkness, laughter replaced the roars of memory. They knew they carried their truths in their hearts, setting the stage for all that was yet to come. Turning to each other, resigned but hopeful, they stepped into the light of a bright new day. And as the sun dawned over Grimstone Acres, rumors of a strange reunion lingering in the air, the monsters held their heads high, having faced what lay within and emerged stronger. But one thing paused in the shadows: the Guardian. Watching, waiting. The tale was far from over. So, if you think this journey was wild, don't forget to buckle up for the next ride. You need to subscribe now and hit that bell so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. And please, smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this outrageous conclusion. What do you think lies ahead for our motley crew of monsters? And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this epic saga with at least 5 friends who need to witness this ending. Let us spread the chaos and hope join us in the next adventure.